Hello, my name is Michael Rapid Flames. I am the owner of Porygon 2 Draft League. Today, I'm going to go into what draft is, how to draft. This is basically a noob's introduction. I am joined today with my co-host Chris.
What up,
Introduce
what up?
yourself. Chris is a big
I
fat
am
loser.
Chris,
Yes.
apparently, allegedly.
Allegedly, you're a loser.
Will not confirm nor deny.
So, let's just get right into it. All right, what is draft? Here, I will show you a completed draft league document. You have your rules, you have your teams. Normally, you'll have 16 player pools. So right here, from the previous season, 16 players in the teams tab. You all have a certain budget here. It was 115 points, and you use this budget to draft a team from the tier list. Here you can see the X's mark out what has been picked. Everything without it has not been picked. There's certain bans, there's certain restrictions, and the newly introduced Terra has actually had to have been restricted on some Pokemon just because of how strong it is. These battles work in such a way that you will be given a schedule from when the draft league opens up. You see, we have every week, week 1, week 2, week 3. These are literal calendar weeks. So let's say that you are the Trick Room Abusers, my personal team, the Trick Room Abusers, Porygon 2 Season 5 Goats. Here, we will see that I was placed up against Pla, which would be our good friend Chi. How I would prepare for this battle is I would go into the teams, locate my team with the Pokemon I drafted and the Terra types that I chose, and go off to find Chi. Chi is right over here to the right. We'll be using his team as a little bit of a reference. Some may just sit here and prepare their teams based off of this, look back and forth at what you have and what they have. That's boring. We'll get into how to fix that. Lastly, what I want to go over in this little draft league document is playoffs. Playoffs is determined by your win-loss or your standings. Here it's top 8 in the next season that we're doing here. Season starting up on Monday, I believe. Monday the 19th. We have 12 players, which means that top 6 will get in, top 2 players will have a bye to semifinals. Here is a little bit more regular with 16 players, meaning that top 8 gets into playoffs. So here we have number 1 seed Toronto Tapus versus number 8 seed Slavic Scizors. We have number 1 to number 8, and then it goes down 2 to 7, 3 to 6, 4 to 5. So that's playoffs done. That's the general overview of how draft really works. You have more fun tabs like the MVP race. You can look into the data and whatnot and try to be a little coder, but you cannot access anything on this document. What resource I will give to you, though, is the team builder. Chris, take it away with the team builder, please.
Team builder. So we've gone over what draft is, right? The next thing would be how to draft. What do we want to say about it? There's a few things that you want to pay attention to when drafting. Would be rolls, cores, roll compression in typically your later picks. How do we want to go about this here? Do we want to go open up the draft checklist? There we go.
Yes, so this is the draft checklist. Very useful resource. I've actually have it pinned in the Discord. Firstly, though, I would like to talk a little bit more about the team builder. This is just, you plug in your teams, as mentioned before. Let's say, here, right? I actually plugged in this team specifically. It's my team right here versus Project, for semifinals, I believe, right here. And if you go over to the matchup center, you can actually see a better layout of how the teams look side by side. You can see it with speed rolls. You can see typing charts to see what they're weak against and what isn't so weakened to them, what's neutral. You can see stats, you can see speed comparisons, and all the different types of moves that Mons get. Determining what you will put on your team has been so graciously gifted upon us by our good friend Chris.
Yeah. So as you can see here, I've broken this down into 3 categories. You've got your cores. You've got, well, your functional roles and your type-based roles. These are just sort of placeholder terms I've given them. But basically, you can see, if we start with cores here, usually what people will do when they start drafting, right? Where do you even start? Typically, what people will do is you'll draft either like a balance, but typically a more offensive core. You might, your first or second mon, if you really want that one sort of defensive backbone, sure, sometimes. But for the most part, defense is something you can look at later. Offensive core, and you can also pair with your offensive core a typing core.
Yeah.
Fire, Water, Grass, Dragon, Fairy, Steel, two very common cores that people will draft for their first three. It doesn't have to be first three, but you want to get as good a core as possible. So typically that's how it will go.
Yeah,
and
usually you want to stick your strongest mons into these cores, but as you get more advanced in draft, I'll actually show you an example here of where I have both cores. You can actually delegate the typings to lower tier Pokemon. Like I have my Fairy, Dragon, Steel core as Raging Bolt, Galarian Weezing, and Copperajah. This doesn't, it's not the strongest core of all time, but it is still a strong defensive backbone with all three mons being pretty fat. I have my offensive core as my water, fire, grass, as Palafin, Cinderace, and then Diplin's more of a defensive Pokemon, but it can terastallize, so, I count it. It can be offensive if you really want it to be.
Yeah, that's the kind of synergy that you're looking for when you're drafting a team.
Yeah.
So you'll typically start with those kind of top 2, top 3 mons, and the rest of the team is built around it so that you can really accentuate the strengths of these first few picks and cover for any weaknesses it might have.
Yeah. And another thing you would actually like to look out for, when you're drafting a team, I know it's getting a little advanced, but how do these Pokemon work with each other? You'll notice that my top 3 strongest offensive mons all have some type of pivot. It has, Volt Switch on Raging Bolt, U-turn on Cinderace, Flip turn to Palafin, so that they can all get into each other or get out of situations. They all work with each other, and we'll actually go deeper into that in how to draft more properly in a later video. So stay tuned for that. We're not going to spend, an hour drilling you guys with, don't draft Tyrantrum as your main attacking, dragon. It's not super offensively oriented. It's too slow. We're not going to go into that here. Mainly what we're going to go into is just, what do you want? So, as Chris said before, cores, you can go into your functional roles. Your functional roles aren't necessarily as essential, but these are things that you want to have in a draft to have it be stronger than others. More than 2 pivots, more than 2 priorities, priority being E-speed, bullet punch, even fake out, speed above 110, again, not necessary, but you want hazards, you definitely want hazard removal. Any type of wall breakers just to see what you can really work with, both defensive spectrums. I went against Pokemon Grand Prix team, Chris, you'll remember this, where the special defense stat was 60. Or 70 something, and I actually ended up running.
If you're caught with something like that, it's really easy to get countered.
Yeah, I ended up running Throat Spray, Boom Burst, Palafin. I can actually show off that video, at a later time in a later video. But I have a certain video that we're going to get to in a minute. You have your other obvious roles like a sweeper. Something you might not think of as a scarfer. A mon that you can just slap a choice scarf on and it works. I have, Cinderace and Galarian Articuno here to really deal with that. We have Knockoff. Knockoff has become super essential recently with its power buff and just getting rid of items. It's super, super nice for draft. And then Fast Taunt and Encore. This is actually something that has been popularized in Gen 9 OU metagames, where, here, I'll pull it up here, where most really good mons usually have some type of Encore taunt. So, Iron Valiant with the, booster energy in speed has Encore to really disrupt sweepers, and then set up with, Swords Dance or Calm Mind and just sweep from there. having 116 speed, you can really just set it up to be, plus speed minus, or plus speed, and then you have your other offensive stat somewhere else. Another Pokemon that's been like super good like that is Ogerpon. Ogerpon, being base 110, has a really nice Encore. It also has Taunt, which is like super powerful for disruption, but like a fast Taunt or a fast Encore is super nice because you can Encore someone into rocks, you can Encore them into setup, you can really get them into whatever you'd like. And then we also have type-based roles. Chris, I'll let you get into that.
Yeah, so type-based roles they're a little bit more on the passive side, but still, I mean, I would say just as essential as your functional rules here. And I say essential, right? They're not 100% necessary, but most of the time, generally, these are all things that you're going to want to check off.
Yeah, like
So bulky water,
in my first
super
draft
common
league,
in draft,
like
right?
in my first draft league win, I won without using a bulky water. It's not essential, but it's nice to have. Sorry for cutting you
Right,
off.
right. There you go. Exactly. It's not like it's must be followed. These are just tips to kind of point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Grounded poison. Typically, this is good because it is a way to just switch into toxic spikes and absorb them. Which, if you don't have that, can be really tough to deal with. Dragon immunity, electric immunity, ground immunity. These are all very good offensive typings, and you're likely to see them on the majority of teams. So having ways to deal with these are great. Having a dark resist, a fair resist, psychic resist, same thing. These are types that, if not properly checked, they can get super out of hand and tough to deal with. So that's why there's a little bit of an emphasis on these things over why don't I need a bug resist? It's just not something that's commonly going to get you in a tough spot.
Yeah, and you'll also notice that like something like bug has a lot of resistances. Something like psychic, the Titan it used to be in Gen 1 just has a lot of resistances, grass. These are not typically types you're going to see as the most offensively leaning or offensively oriented things. You'll actually notice that if we venture on into the tier list, you're going to see that a lot of these Pokemon that are top tiers don't have too many switch-ins. So like something like Chanpao, Darkrai, there's what kind of dark type switch-ins do you have? Roaring Moon, Meowscarada, Chi-Yu even. For the dark type, it's hard to switch in on. You have Dragon that's only switched in on by Fairy and Steel, if I remember correctly. Ghost is the most volatile typing in the game right now. And then like something like Iron Valiant, there are a few amount of Pokemon that can really switch into a Specs Moonblast now. And so you'll notice that like most of the top tiers are offensively orienting. In fact, I don't think we get a real defensive Mon until like Celesteela. That's a top tier Pokemon, or like Clefable, Corviknight, Great Tusk, Gliscor, really anything like that. Tapu Fini. So like these top tiers, usually you're gonna build your team around, where you can try to build around them, but not go and build around something like Entei, where it has switch-ins, it has resistances, it has everything. So that's really all about that we're gonna get into for how to draft. Again, we'll later go into how to draft, but what I would like to do is show you guys a replay. This replay sits near and dear to my heart because it includes me beating up one of my best friends. Here we have a certain matchup where it's, this Dragapult Darkrai team into Urshifu Rapid Strike, Tapu Lele, but there's a Terrapetron. Chris, what would you do about this Terrapetron?
If I had your team,
Mm-hmm.
I would hit it with a special attack. Darkrai looks like a good option. Depending if it Terras, maybe the Serperior, maybe the Rotom Frost.
So let me show you. Let me show you what I did about this. Because, if I could sit there, I could hit it with a Darkrai or a Dragapult, but really getting these two in against this Petron, I don't want to get Malignant Chain poisoned. It's kind of hard. So instead, what my brain thought of is, what Pokemon can I use that can break through this Pecharunt that would normally switch in on that Pokemon? And so I lean towards Entei. I actually have this team pulled up here, where I ran a Specs, Terrifier, Eruption, Entei, just to deal with this Pecharunt, and it's generally good into the team. I don't think there's a lot of Pokemon that can really switch into it, and the way that I figured that out is by using this resource called the Damage Calculator. Here, we can pull up an Entei set. I'll pull up a blank set for now, Or you know what? No, I can just import it. You can just import it right from the Pokepaste here. Import my set, Entei, come forward, custom set. We have my Choice Specs Entei here. And I sat here and I noticed Pecharunt can't really switch into it. If I'm Eruption with Choice Specs, it can just straight up kill if it's not, full HP. If I Terrasilize, even Max Speed F Pecharunt is going to get 2-shot. Like, if you look at that, that's some crazy damage. Again, even if I don't Terra, it's still 2-shotting. This Pecharunt now no longer wants to come in on Entei. I'm going to show you the exact example of that in this replay right here. How these videos are going to work, there's going to be at least one replay per video just to really drill Draft League into your guys' mind, really introduce you to more stuff and what could happen. Here, we'll see. I actually led Entei in the Tinglu. Not the best lead for me. Tinglu can really punish Entei here, damage it so that Eruption doesn't have full power anymore. I decided to switch out. Go into my defensive check for Tinglu. I have Defog. I think I'm heavy duty boots maybe? No, leftovers. Okay. Still works against Tinglu. We play this little back and forth game where Tinglu ruinations, whirlwinds me out. This is just a setup Tinglu. I have my Pain Split to recover off the damage. And we really just play this little back and forth for a while. Where I keep going, keep setting up Stealth Rocks. This is safe for me. I have calculated that my Rotom can't take too much from this Tinglu's Stone Edge, which would be the most powerful move that it can hit me with. So I can really just go back and forth until he goes into Cinderace. Here, I am forced to Terrasilize because the thought process is that Cinderace can get Will-O-Wisp. That would be a way that he can deal with my Gliscor by burning it so that my Toxic Orb can't go off and Poison Heal. These are all things that you'll gain with time and practice, but having to make a read like that is super difficult in-game. Pyro Ball comes out, does a large amount of damage. I can almost assume that it's Choice Banded, just because of how much damage that it did. I Volt Switch and I go into my Entei. I go into my Entei because I'm calling Sam's bluff. I do not think that this Cinderace will stay in because I've calculated the Pyro Ball damage and figured out that it's Choice Banded. Here, his best play is to honestly switch in Pecharunt because it should wall Entei very nicely. Pecharunt comes in and we'll see that the Eruption does 84%. Chris, this Pecharunt is no longer a threat. If you're Sam, what are you going to do here? What's your plan of action?
That's it. That's, talk about how to prep for a battle, right? Something that you want to look for is a win con.
Yep.
And that's basically what Mike's talking about here. He's found a win con. If he can get rid of this Pecharunt, then that's a big obstacle that's in his way that is no longer in his way.
Yep. From there, Dragapult can really set up, and it doesn't have too many other threats besides, Lele or Whirlwind Tinglu. So I've already gotten rid of the main threat to my team. It's already gone. Eruption comes out. He tries to heal with leftovers. Tinglu comes in. This Eruption, look, that Eruption just did 52 to a Tinglu. Have you ever looked at Tinglu's stats? Look at this thing. It's got Vessel of Ruin, which, divides my special attack by percentage. It's very bulky. It just took 52%. Sam no longer has any switch-ins to this thing. He has to sacrifice it. Sometimes that is the best option. Now, what I would like to iterate right now, before we again go into it, is that if you're in a super losing position like Sam here, do not forfeit. Do not ever forfeit. Forfeiting is just about the most terrible, disrespectful thing you can do in Draft League. Do not forfeit a battle. It is dumb. You can always get more differential. You can always look better in standings. Do not forfeit. You see Trailblaze come out from this Urshifu. You know, I see its Life Orb, big damage. I go into Empoleon. My Empoleon is Choppleberry here. It can take a hit, and it should be able to kill with Grass Knot. I've been able to calculate the amount of damage that I can do with that Grass Knot. However, we do see Drain Punch come out from Sam. You know, super good prep to be able to live a move like this, because now he has health back, he's fine. I was expecting a close combat, but it did not come out. Drain Punch takes me down, but now I can go into my Darkrai. My Darkrai is Choice Scarf to be able to deal with something like this Urshifu Rapid Strike once it gets +1. I believe I heard you saying something, Chris?
Nope, wasn't saying anything.
Ah, damn. But, you know, I've calculated Sludge Bomb can kill here. It's probably the safest move, because if Petrarunt tries to switch in, it's dead the next turn. You know, Lele doesn't want to come in, Zapdos doesn't want to get poisoned. I'm really safe. So I go back into Entei here as a Malignant Chain comes out from the Petrarunt. You know, not doing too much so that my Eruption's still strong, but I do have Fire Blast and Extra Sensory for, you know, other general damage. Here, I believe that I pressed Fire Blast as the best option, yes. I do unfortunately miss, that's the game we play. I hit the second one, doing 47, and he presses U-turn. Very confused by this U-turn. He could have just hit me a little bit more, you know, really dug in the idea that Eruption will not be doing damage, but that's okay. Cinderace comes in here, you know, U-turn comes out, and me staying in here really called that U-turn, because under any other circumstance, if this Cinderace presses high jump kick or whatever, you know, my Entei is gone, and I now have to deal with this Cinderace, who's a fighting type, in that I can't really press a safe move with Darkrai with his switch-ins. So I really called that. I got the other Fire Blast to hit. I take another Fire Blast to the Zapdos. Zapdos is gone. In comes Cinderace, and Cinderace presses Power Ball and just takes down the Entei. So now it's 3-3. And even though Sam was in a super, super, super bad spot before, we actually have even amounts of Pokemon. Cinderace against Gliscor. This Gliscor is actually made for this Cinderace to be able to take hits and just really, you know, get rid of it. You'll see that I'm Toxic. Gliscor has Poison Heal, so it's really just the best way to run Gliscor, unless you're going against some, like, Landorus Therian with Intimidate, and you want to run Hyper Cutter, Swords Dance, but it's for the future. Tapu Lele comes in. I don't have a safe switch in, so I just take the Moonblast. And here, I've calculated. I've gone into the future. And I've said, hey, if I go Darkrai here, and I press something like Dark Pulse, it doesn't have any good switch-ins, and this Tapu Lele will take enough chip to even where if it's some type of item, like it's the Ghost Resist Berry, I don't remember what it's called, I think it's Kasib Berry.
I think so.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But I've calculated that if I press Dark Pulse here, which I do some good damage. You know, a flinch would be nice, 30%, but you can't rely on it. Moonblast comes out, takes out my Darkrai. Now you may be thinking, Rapid, what's wrong with you? Stupid. Like, what are you going to do here? You have a Dragapult against a Choice Scarf Lele. You're obviously cooked. No. Here is where I made Sam pee his pants a little bit. As the Moonblast comes out, he thinks he's won, but I am Focus Sash, Dragon Dance. I pick up Dragon Dance on my Dragapult, and after the Focus Sash, I may be at 1 HP, but I am now +1. He can't outspeed me, and everything on Sam's team is too chipped to really do anything. I go into Phantom Force, he can't hit the Moonblast, goes into Petrarunt for, you know, general purposes, gets taken out, Tapu Lele comes back, and I can just hit Tapu Lele again with a Phantom Force. This game is over, ladies and gentlemen. So, that is the main idea here about setting up for a win con. Of course, I didn't set up for this Dragapult to come in on turn, what was it, 26 or 27 and press Dragon Dance in front of a Tapu Lele. No. But I have set up my team in such a way where I can play around a win con. My win conditions here were Entei and Dragapult, just to make sure I can break through this team. So that's really all that we're going to go over today. Besides that, you know, the damage calculator, super useful tool. I actually have all these tools, the damage calculator, the team builder, the checklist. I think I got something else in a resources tab in my Discord, which will be linked in the description of this video. The last things that I want to go over are mock battles. So if you have a buddy who's in the draft league, some drafts try to enforce this rule that you can't do mocks with people that are in the draft league. We don't care. You can actually set up the matchup against a buddy, you know, send them a screenshot of the certain matchup and say, hey, can you build this team against me so I can get some practice in for our battle? If this is your only draft league, that would be, you know, pretty beneficial to make sure that you're winning games and you can make it in the playoffs and hopefully win the league. Me and Chris actually do mocks often. We team build together. You can do all that stuff together. Just don't, like, grossly backseat each other. You know, don't tell each other what to do in game. You know, that's less of a rule and more of a, you know, don't be an asshole thing. That's pretty much all I have to say. Chris, if you'd like to add anything before we peace out of here.
Yeah, no, I think you covered the bases pretty nicely there.
Thank you very much. Well, with that said, sign-ups for Porygon 2 Draft League Season 7 are ending Monday the 19th. So that means that if you don't apply before then, you're not going to be able to get in. I will be able to set people up as replacement coaches in case somebody unfortunately drops from the league. So there's always a way in if you don't make it. You know, if this video doesn't reach it to you, to your little recommended feed in time, if it doesn't reach you in any way whatsoever, there's still always a way in. You can always be involved in the community and stick around for the next couple seasons. With all that out of the way, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for making it all the way through. I hope you enjoy Draft League, and I can't wait to go over power rankings, which will be out the week after that the draft has concluded. The draft will start Monday the 19th, as I said before. Once that's done, we're going to make a video. We're going to go over PRs and whatnot. And I think we're actually going to put out a video on team building next week. This is going to be more of like a weekly thing instead of daily, because this is not my full-time job. I am a student. I need time. So thank you all once again for checking out the video, and I will see you all later. Peace.